Welcome back to the United Journal. Today we are back with a special episode on Manchester United's Teden Mengi, who is on loan at Wayne Rooney's Derby County. We'll be joined by Corey from Rams Review Podcast to discuss about Mengi's loan spell at Derby so far. Before we begin, make sure to hit the subscribe button and turn on the bell icon so that you don't miss the amazing Man United content we'll be bringing on this channel. Hello and welcome back to the United Journal. I'm your host, Matt, and today I'm joined by Corey of Rams Review. Corey, how are you?
Matt, I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
I'm good. Can't complain.
Complaining, no one's going to listen or do anything about it, so it's not going to do any good, is it?
Exactly. So
yeah, thanks for having me on, Matt. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem, and thanks for making the time. So we're here today just to kind of briefly check up on Teden Mengi, a player that, United fans are very, very excited about, a prospect who a lot of people within the club have said could be a future captain of the club. So just quickly talk to us about how he's been getting on at Derby. What have you seen from him? And actually take us back to the beginning when he initially signed for the club on loan. What were your thoughts as a Derby County fan?
Yeah, well, I think my initial thoughts were who, and that's no disrespect, but obviously I don't necessarily watch a lot of Manchester United under 23 games. But again, I said the same thing when Derby signed 2.5 years ago, Fikayo Tomori from Chelsea. It was kind of like, who? And he ended up winning player of the season. And I love Fikayo Tomori. He's amazing. And I think when I look at the signing, before I get into the performances, when I look at the signings of Teden Mengi, it has a lot of vibes of Fikayo Tomori. He was relatively unknown to the fan base when he came in, very pacey, central defender, highly well thought of a top 6, top tier elite academy, elite club academy, and came into a Derby side that needed defensive reinforcements. And Mengi, the first couple performances were really sketchy from him. He played out of position because he was playing at right back. One was against Wickham, which was probably just better to not talk about because Wayne Rooney, former United player, now Derby County manager, made so many changes for that game. It was ridiculous. He made like 7 or 8 changes, which were completely unnecessary. And he played Mengi the first couple games at right back. He's not a right back. Let's just put it nicely. He's just not a right back. But then the last few games he's played in central defense, and he's looked a lot more assured. He's looked very comfortable on the ball. He's looked very strong. He's got fantastic recovery pace. So, I don't think there's really many expectations surrounding him for the remainder of the season. But he does give you a lot of Fikayo Tomori type vibes. And if he does half as well as what Tomori did at Derby, then Derby will have a heck of a player on their hands, and as will Manchester United.
Yes. So briefly, I know you briefly just now touched upon some of his attributes, recovery pace, which is, I'm sure, something that United fans will love to hear, given that right now our backline seems to be dealing with a lack of pace. And if rumors are to be believed, Eric Bailly could be on his way out of the club in the summer for one reason or another. And he seems to be our quickest center back. And Axel Tuanzebe, another quick player that we have, never really gets a look in. If you could just kind of touch on other attributes of Teden that, I guess, for the United fans who haven't had a chance to see him play for United in the academy or haven't had a chance to see him in action for Derby, if you could just kind of touch on what would you say are some of his best attributes?
Obviously, pace, like you mentioned, there is number one. I think his physical presence that he provides as well. He's a rather large lad as well, and which is going to help him obviously in the Championship, being such a physical league that it is. It's difficult to kind of put sometimes, a rating or an idea behind how he plays with passing and things like that, because sometimes Derby's play does not put him in a situation, or many players really, in a situation where they can excel. Sometimes at the back, Derby become very labored. They pass it between the 2 center halves and the goalkeeper, and they pass it between the wing backs and then across the back line for large swaths of the game. But from what I've seen, he's very, very strong, very, very quick. And has all the attributes, again, like we were talking about with Fikayo Tomori. He basically is like Fikayo Tomori 2.0. I guess the improvement on that, if you can improve on Fikayo Tomori, we're improving from Fikayo Tomori 1.0 to 2.0, is he's a little bit bigger, a little bit stronger, physical presence as a specimen of the build of the man. So yeah, he's settling in very nicely.
Yeah, that's definitely good to hear that you mentioned that he's physically not out of place in the championship. And that'll definitely be something that hopefully he can bring to the first team back at United in the Premier League. Just because I know that as a fan who's watched Victor Lindelof kind of get bullied on a variety of occasions, it's going to definitely be great for us to bring in a center back who won't be, afraid to get physical with some of the more the Chris Woods of the Premier League, if you will. Um, so, in terms of how he's on the ball, I know you mentioned that sometimes it's a bit labored for Darby building up from the back. One of the things that Ali has said that he wants to do is play out from the back, and recently we tried to do that in the FA Cup game against Leicester, and it went awful. How would you say he is on the ball, and have you seen any sort of improvements in terms of when he first started to where he is now in terms of his ability on the ball?
Well, I think in terms of improvement, it would be difficult to really illustrate that point because he's only really played a handful of times for Derby. And again, two of those were at right back where he was overmatched. So I don't necessarily want to like say, oh, well, he's improved this much or he's not improved this much, but he looks pretty comfortable on the ball. I mean, his accuracy's there. His vision's there. You can see that there's an idea in there, that there's a player in there. Um, and that's the best thing that I can say about him. Positionally, he's pretty good, but again, all young players make mistakes. Even senior players, especially at Derby, sometimes make mistakes at the back. And when you make a mistake at the back, you normally get exposed a lot more than we would further up the pitch. So yeah, it would just I don't want to necessarily sit here, Matt, and say, well, he's done whatever, because I don't want to be unfair to the guy because he's only played 5 or 6 games. What I would say is he looks very comfortable. He looks like he could settle in at the championship. I know that Wayne Rooney has said that he wants to get Mengi again next season, which would make a lot of sense with a couple of the players. Derby have two loanees, two loanee center halves. In addition to Mengi, they have George Edmondson from Rangers. They've got Matt Clark from Brighton. Then they've got Curtis Davis and Andre Wisdom both out of contract. So it would make a lot of sense for Mengi to come in. So what I think for this half season, I would expect after they come back from this international break, Mengi to continue to get more playing time with a view to having him be Derby next season, where he would probably be a full-time starter.
Gotcha. And now, in terms of, I know you mentioned the second loan spell next season. How have the fans kind of reacted to him being a part of the team, and even that news that you just mentioned there? What's been the reaction from Derby fans about that?
Yeah, I think Mengi. Again, I think Derby fans are very accepting when they get a new player in. They always look to see a new person around the group, and he's settled in very nicely from all we can tell from everything from the journalists who cover the club that I've spoken to, from the people that I've spoken to that have seen him. He's settled in very nicely. He's become one of the lads very quickly. And fans do like him. I mean, there was a great thing where the Derby admin on Twitter, one of them, the other Derby young players, Louis Sibley, scored a cracking goal to equalize against Brentford in like the 93rd minute or something. And we were all Teden Mengi, and they showed a picture of his face and zoomed in. And he was just absolutely elated. So, to see a kind of a lone player have that kind of elation for a lone club, obviously he's playing for them and whatever, but it was great to see. And to see that he's going to come in next season, hopefully, I think it would be fantastic because, again, there's going to be a lot of change at Derby in summer in a lot of different positions. And I think that Rooney, if he can bring in Teden Mengi, that's one less thing he has to worry about in terms of building a squad for next season. And again, he's 18 years old, so you don't want to necessarily put too many high expectations on the lad. But we'll see how he progresses for this 6 months that he's at Derby, from January to June, basically. He can go back to Manchester United for a few weeks and then hopefully come back to Derby and then take it to another level next season, and hopefully kick on and lead the Rams hopefully to promotion in the Premier League and not promotion back to the Championship.
Yeah, I think I know, speaking for myself, I don't know if other United fans would feel the same way. I think one of the things that I'm always keen is for our promising young players to kind of go out and get minutes playing men's football, because the under 23s is kind of, it's kind of vanilla a bit, and it doesn't really always translate to success at the first team level. So it'll be great for Teden to come back and get some more minutes, and like you said, hopefully lead Derby back into the Premier League. Now, we've talked about his strengths. I know in reading up and listening to people who spoke about him when he was still at United in the under 23s, they said that he was a little bit rash at times, tends to kind of give away fouls in bad areas, maybe a bad challenge in the penalty area even. What have you made in terms of his weaknesses? Is he someone who maybe is a little bit overly aggressive due to his age, or what do you think?
Yeah, we've not really seen anything like that from a Derby perspective as of yet. Knock on wood that we won't.
Right, right.
Again, we're dealing with a young player here, so mistakes are going to creep in, especially when you look at the championship season and how a monotonous long slog it is, where you go to all these different places and play all these different teams. In such a quick succession. So it'll be interesting to see how he adapts his game. I think the one weakness that stands out to me is something we've already talked about, which is his versatility. He looked very uncomfortable at right back. He looked very comfortable at center half. I know he's a young player, but you would expect a young player, hopefully, to continue to grow, maybe play a couple different positions. Obviously, you want him to settle into one position and be great at it. I understand that. But sometimes as a professional, you can see where they could potentially fit in to another position. Kind of like Luke Shaw. We know Luke Shaw is a quality left back, arguably one of the best left backs in the Premier League, probably the most informed left back, but he could also play in the back three as well, right? He can also play in a back three. He can play as an emergency center half. So sometimes you need to have a little bit of flexibility to your game. We're not saying that Luke Shaw is a center half. We're saying Luke Shaw is a fullback who can also in an emergency do this other job. And that's what I would hope to see from Teden Mengi as well as he progresses. Hopefully, he can take those experiences right back, continue to work on it, maybe gain another position in his repertoire, because I think that's going to help him down the road to be a little bit more versatile. So I think versatility is the one thing that lets him down in my eyes, because again, you're only playing with 2 or 3 center halves, whereas if you play with 5 at the back, there's 5 positions he can play rather than 3 or 2. So
right. And lastly, we can't we can't leave without talking about Wayne Rooney, United legend. One of the reasons that I ever even became a United fan was because Wayne Rooney was just one of my favorite players. Talk to me about how he's been getting on as Derby manager. What have you made of his stint so far?
Yeah, well, it's been a very weird time for him at Derby. Obviously, you never thought you'd ever see him play in a Derby kit, not even in FIFA video games, right?
Right.
But he shows up last January. He was one of the catalysts to Derby's form. In addition to playing some very weak teams up until lockdown, came back this season, did not look fit, did not really look interested. Played against Middlesbrough, did not play very well. Middlesbrough basically retired Wayne Rooney, so that was a bit disappointing. But I think for him to get off the field and into the touchline was probably the best thing he could have done, is to stop playing, which is a very weird thing to say. But yeah, since he got the full-time coaching job, he tried to simplify things a lot. Derby had Philip Cocu before, the Dutch manager, but he was being very, very technical and trying to work a level above the players that he was dealing with, right? An elite level coach trying to deal with championship. It's just not going to work. Louis Van Gaal goes and works at Accrington Stanley. It's just not going to work because of, no disrespect to Accrington Stanley, no disrespect to him. Sometimes they just don't mirror up. You have to have people that kind of mirror up. Rooney simplified a lot of things, and he got results early on. There was a period of time where Derby, I think, in like 11 games, conceded 3 goals. He had tightened things up at the back significantly. They were scoring a few goals. Goal scoring has been a terrible problem for Derby this season. But when you don't concede, you have a better chance of winning because you only have to get 1 goal or you're going to get a point out of it. But the last few games, he's, I wouldn't say lost the plot, but the results have not been there. He's not performed very well. He's been outcoached, and by that, he's been outcoached a couple times, various different tactics. Derby's mirrored in a relegation dogfight right now. So instead of having a consistent team with consistent tactics, he's looking ahead and saying, okay, here's who we play. How do they set up? How can I counteract this? Which is sometimes not necessarily what you need from a team. Continue to chop and change. I referenced the Wickham game where he made like 9 changes, which was just okay. Why? But, you need to win that game. I think they did win that game. They may have won that game, or it was a draw. They didn't lose. I know that. So, all the games blur together these days. But with Rooney, it was great new manager bounce, and now is where we have to come, and he has to show his managerial mettle. And recent performances have not been great. So hopefully this international break's been a good opportunity for him to work with the players who are still there and kick on for the remainder of the season.
Right. And so now, in terms of the longer term for Wayne Rooney, do you feel as though he can be a successful manager at Derby, or do you think that he's kind of treading water, unfortunately, at the moment?
Yeah, I think he's got all the tools to be a successful manager at Derby County, and I hope that he does. From what we've understood, we've read some articles where he's at his getting picked up at Cheshire Mansion at 5:30 in the morning. He's doing his notes in the car. He's spending 12-hour days. He's always been very bullish on the fact that Derby are not going to get relegated. He's been very bullish on the fact that he wants next season to push for promotion for Derby, that he wants to get Derby back to the Premier League. And of course, as a fan, you want to hear that. That's fantastic. He's got a great footballing brain. He's been around some of the greatest players, not only of his generation but some of all time. He's been managed and been around some of the greatest minds in the game of the modern era. When you look at the coaches that he's been around, and I'm sure he's picked stuff up. I think what Wayne needs to do is Wayne needs to continue to, when he first got the job, he talked a lot more like a player than he did a manager. And I think, he started to talk more like a manager than a player. So that's fantastic to see. He also, in terms of players, wants 100% commitment from all of them at all times. There was a situation where American international Dwayne Holmes wasn't given his full full feeling in training. Obviously, we've later found out Dwayne Holmes didn't want to be at Derby, so no problem, he's gone. Martin Waghorn, who's not had a very good season for Derby, Rain said, he's trained fantastically. Had a bad session on the Friday, was not even included in the traveling squad for the last game. So, he wants 100%. He demands 100%. That's what he gave as a player, so it comes as no surprise. And we're confident as Derby fans that he has a black book of players that he knows, of people that he knows, and can go out and get players for next summer. When you look at the recruitment that Derby brought in, George Edmondson from Rangers, he knows Gerrard. Teden Mengi, he played with Solskjaer, he knows Manchester United. You look at the other players he brought in, Benny Bengame from Everton, played with him. So, they're bringing these players that he's kind of aware of. And, if he's got a good black book and he's going to these elite clubs, I mean, it worked very similar to Frank Lampard. When Frank Lampard was there and he got Mason Mount, Harry Wilson, and Fikayo Tomori, and it nearly propelled Derby to the Premier League. So I think it's a quiet optimism that Wayne can do it, but hopefully, we need to focus on, instead of trying to get promotion to the Premier League, staying in the Champions League first and foremost. Because if Derby do get relegated, personally, I don't know if Wayne Rooney would stay. I don't know. I think it would be absolutely catastrophic for the club if they were to go down. So hopefully after this international break, Derby can pick up a couple wins, do what they need to do, limp across the finish line, and then try to build for the summer. But it'll be an interesting summer for Derby in terms of player turnover as well. They have a lot of players out of contract. You've got COVID football economics coming into it. What's that environment going to look like? And so Wayne and also Derby don't really know what the ownership situation is, because there has been an ongoing transfer saga now since October. So we don't know how the club's going to go. We don't know what money's going to be available. So it'd be interesting to see how Wayne builds his team for next season. But I think all the hallmarks are there for him to be successful. And obviously, as a Derby fan, you want it to be at Derby.
Yeah, I definitely hope that Waz is successful at Derby. I think as United fans, we're all kind of rooting for him to have a successful career there. And hopefully, like you said, you guys don't go down and you can stay in the championship. And, hopefully we can see you guys maybe in a year's time in the Premier League. Now let's finish up by just taking a couple of listener questions. So this one is from James, who writes, how vocal is Teden when he's playing? Does he look like a future captain?
Well, again, I saw that question as well, Matt, and I've tried to reach out to a couple of my friends who cover the club. We've not been able to get in contact with them to find out how vocal Teden Mengi is. I've not heard anything contrary that he wouldn't be. But, I think he does have all the attributes. I think you can see him communicating in games. I don't know how vocal he is in terms of how it sounds, but you can see him communicating. And I think, he has all the attributes to be a captain. Now, the caveat to that is Manchester United is a global elite club and is different than really any other football club kind of in the world. There's maybe only 5 or 6 clubs like Manchester United. So to be captain of Manchester United is a heavy burden to carry. And so if you're looking at, is he going to captain Manchester United? Yes. But is he going to captain Manchester United at 22, 23? Probably not. You're probably looking at 28, 29 because of the nature of the club that Manchester United is at. Right. I think all the things are there for him to be successful, and he continues on this growth path. He has a good step up in the In the championship, again, I keep referencing Fikayo Tomori. Look what it did for Tomori. Tomori, 6 months after his Derby career finished, his Chelsea career started again. He was playing for England. So, Tomori was also a little bit older, had a little bit more of experience in the championship as well. So I think everything's there for Teden Mengi to be a success and to hopefully be a Manchester United captain in the future.
Yeah. Okay. Let me see if I can find another one that we may have not talked about already. Ryan16_ asks, your favorite United player of all time?
Mine or Teden Mengi's?
Yours.
I think my favorite Manchester United player of all time has got to be none other than the Swedish legend Henrik Larsson. I love the guy at Celtic. He was one of the first names that I ever had printed on the back of my of a jersey. Because Matt, growing up in this area in the States, there wasn't a lot of football on TV like there is now. So you kind of grew up with these strange games. I'm sure you remember Channel 56, which was on like the antenna TV. Used to play random Scottish games, and Henrik Larsson was always popping up with goals. And I love the guy. And when he came to Manchester United, it was very poetic, very nice. So yeah, it's gonna have to be Henrik Larsson.
Okay. And of course, a man who's fondly remembered at United, Henrik Larsson as well. Let's see. We've talked about his strongest attributes. We've talked about his biggest flaws. So I think that's it. I think that's all we've got for today. Corey, again, I want to thank you for joining us today on the United Journal. You want to tell the fans where they can find you?
Sure thing. If your fans are interested in Derby County and how Wayne's getting on and Teden Mengi, you can follow us with the Rams Review podcast. We're on all the major podcasting networks. We're on Twitter at Rams Review 1, Facebook at Rams Review Pod, and Instagram at Rams Review Pod as well. And Matt, thank you so much for having me on. I appreciate the opportunity, and I look forward to talking to you again soon when Teden Mengi's hosting the promotion trophy of the Premier League up as he's winning player of the season at Derby, and Waz is taking the Rams back to the Premier League. But thank you so much for the opportunity. I greatly appreciate it.
No problem. And thank you so much again for the time. And of course, everyone, if you want to follow us, we are now on YouTube at the United Journal. And make sure you like, comment, share, and subscribe. Thank you so much.
Hey guys, hope you enjoyed today's video. Check these videos out too and make sure to drop a like and a comment. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more Man United exclusive videos. Tap on the bell icon so that you don't miss any videos. See you soon.